Hey, everybody that's listening, that's watching. We're ATLiens United Podcast, and this is our 20th episode. Thank you for tuning in. This is a big day for us. I'm Blake, the Marshman, and I am joined. He's back. He's back in the booth.
I'm back, baby. ATL Joe is here.
ATL Joe's here. We are here to catch you up on 3 matches that we won, 2 big ones in the MLS, 1 in the U.S. Open Cup. We got a game coming up Wednesday night, Joe.
Round of 16. I'm pumped.
We are still number 1 in the Supporters Shield, and we're pulling away. I couldn't be more excited. This is a great week for Atlanta, Joe. Are you ready for this?
Oh, we ready. We ready.
Let's rock and roll. "20 episodes later, Joe, and we are still ready.
We are still ready, except for last week when shout out to our executive producer, Britt, for stepping in when I had to take care of some family emergency with my old pooch.
Great job by Britt last week. Glad to have Joe back. Forgot to mention this earlier, but if you guys like the show, don't forget, hit that subscribe button. Give us 5 stars. We'd really appreciate it. We're trying to keep it rolling. We love giving you guys the latest news and insight about Atlanta United every week. Show us a little bit of love. That's our only self-promo. That's it. That's all I got, Joe. Hey, Joe, welcome back. I got great news. Orlando City has now lost 5 straight games.
Make that 6.
Unbelievable.
Ever since we just showed them how we run the MLS, they decided that they're going to tuck their tail and lose the rest of their MLS games for the rest of the season. And I love it.
I'm just going to update our listeners, and I know this isn't Atlanta United related, but it's pretty related. Orlando has dropped to 14th in the Supporters Shield. Aww.
Surprisingly, though, they still sit at number 6 in the East in the playoff hunt because a couple of the other teams in the East just don't want to jump them. Chicago is in a downward spiral. Toronto just can't seem to get over their hangover from a championship. So Orlando's kind of just sitting in limbo while the top 5 teams in the MLS are deciding to separate themselves and really show who the class of the league is.
Of course, we got the big showdown coming up with Orlando at the end of the month. Don't forget that we will actually be doing a live podcast to our listeners at Red Hair Brewery the night before Orlando City at the end of the month. We're going to have the 300 level open in the Benz. I heard the roof's going to be open. It's going to be a madhouse. That game's going to be incredible.
Yeah. And if you're like me and Blake, you like beer, and you like Atlanta United, then you need to come to the brewery, Red Hair Brewery, and drink a beer with us while we talk soccer.
It'll be great. Hey, speaking of beer, we got the Atlanta Summer Beer Festival. It's going on in 4th Ward Park this weekend. Will ATL Joe go?
No, I'm going to the lake this weekend to my buddy's lake house. We're going to be watching World Cup, grilling out all day. I'm bringing a keg of craft beer.
Sounds incredible. Hey, so I'm also going to be at the lake. I'm not going to be here. Let's talk about the World Cup really briefly. Started today.
Yes.
We got games as early as 8 a.m., so happy 5 Stripe Friday. There's probably a game going on right now as you're listening to this podcast. I think it's Egypt-Uruguay at 8 a.m. Eastern time.
Will Suarez bite somebody?
That is the question. A quick note on the World Cup. Joe and I are actually going to do a special World Cup podcast. If you guys like this show, we're going to have a separate show for you guys. Check it out. It's going to be about 15 minutes, just giving everyone the latest on the World Cup because Joe and I love soccer. We love Atlanta United the most, but this is the best tournament in the entire world. So we got to highlight it. So if you guys want to check out our other World Cup podcast, it's going to run for about 4 weeks until the end of the World Cup. Check it out. That's all I'll say about that. Let's talk about SoccerCon coming up just a few weeks away. This is another event that you can meet ATL Joe and I and the whole podcast team.
Should be fun.
We're going to be at Raw in Midtown. That's June the 23rd, and it's going to be a World Cup watch party.
It's all soccer all the time. It's fun. It's in the middle of the city at Raw. It's a great bar to go to. And again, I'll be drinking a beer.
Joe will be drinking a beer. That's one thing we can always guarantee. Not to mention, while we're on the fact of the World Cup occurring at this moment, Joe. Let's talk about the fact that 8 years from now, in 2026, it was just announced yesterday that the USA, Mexico, and Canada's joint bid for the World Cup has been awarded. It is going to be in the United States.
USA!
Mexico and
USA,
Canada.
USA!
You know the best news about this, Joe? We automatically qualify.
Yes! You telling me that I can watch the World Cup with my home country in the World Cup.
And we don't even have to worry about qualification.
And then Atlanta is right there in the front running. This is amazing news. Atlanta is almost guaranteed to get a semifinal and has an outside shot at being the actual host city for the final. And how amazing would that be? And everyone at Atlanta United games, you are all part of the reason why Atlanta is booming in the soccer world and part of the reason we're getting a World Cup. So I'm raising a beer to the number 17 and making Atlanta United and Atlanta such a soccer city that the World Cup is going to come to our stadium.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Mercedes-Benz is guaranteed as a World Cup venue. The only debate right now is whether it will be a semifinal venue or possibly a final venue. Really exciting stuff. We're going to get into more of the World Cup as the weeks roll on, but this is huge for Atlanta as a city, coming out as a soccer city. Darren Eales said it himself. This was a huge part of the bid, was putting Atlanta on the pedestal, showing our crowd support, showing our fans, and showing that Atlanta is here to represent the entire country in terms of what soccer should be. So, I mean, it's an exciting time to be a soccer fan in Atlanta. I couldn't be more pumped. While we're on the subject of Atlanta, let's get into Atlanta United news because these are the ATLiens. They want to hear us talk about Atlanta United.
It's been a big week, too, coming off a tough road trip. Brad Guzan, goalie of the week. He made the team of the week. He's a brick wall, and he wasn't letting anything pass him except for one unfortunate goal in New York.
Brad played great. Let's talk about the latest rumor. This is breaking news from the ATLiens United. And Eric Remedy, he is an Argentinian defensive midfielder. He's 23 years old, and he is getting hot links. Apparently, rumors say he just landed in Atlanta for his medical. He's rumored to be signing with our team right now. Multiple Argentinian sources are reporting it. I think this is looking pretty legit. I don't know anything about credibility in terms of Argentinian newspapers. It's all over Reddit. It's all over Dirty South Soccer. It's all over the interwebs.
Yeah.
What do you think, Joe?
Well, first off, I got to say that he's a doppelganger of my favorite of last year, Carlos Carmona. This guy looks very similar to Carlos Carmona. He plays the same position, too. Very defensive. But I was looking at his cap restriction and the buyout clause of $2.5 million. And that would require a designated player level. So unless there's a way that we can finagle the rules and get him in on like a TAM contract and bring him in for the Carlos Carmona money that we have available, that would be a wonderful signing. But if he's a designated player, that means we're losing one of our three.
Yeah, I don't want to get into speculation. I just want to hit on something really quick about this kid. This kid is a player with tons of potential and a position that we only have an aging player at. I mean, Larry is, 34 now? So we're talking about a guy that's over 10 years his junior. And he could come in, make an impact. Larry's not going to be able to play that position. And we don't really have a good backup for that position when Larry's out, if I'm being honest. Nagby's not really meant to play a 6. We don't have a solid backup right there.
We got some young guys at ATL UTD2 with Awo and my favorite young 17-year-old Chris Goslin.
I just don't know if we're ready to take a 17-year-old all the way through the MLS playoffs with us. That's my question. Love Goslin. Think he's an emerging talent. This guy is about 6 years older, and he's been doing well in the Argentinian league. So this is a source coming from Argentina. The name of the newspaper and radio host is Lionel Cerredo. He seems to be very credible in Argentina, and he says Eric Remedy is on his way to Atlanta. Literally, he's flying here right now. So big news for Atlanta. Let's see how this one works out because our last transfer rumor did not pan out.
It's also silly season. You know, the rumors are flying everywhere, and like you said, Mbia, my bad. Mbia. He did not. He came to Atlanta and watched the game, and we didn't sign him.
I wish we signed Mbappe.
But this is a much different player, and he is the exact profile that we have staked our claim to. He's a young South American player with a lot of upside and a lot of sell-on after we pay for him.
Okay, let's just update our fans that have been living in a cave for the past week and a half. We have won 2 games. We've drawn 1 on the road. We won our U.S. Open Cup match, which leads us into this upcoming Wednesday night. I actually got a phone call from Atlanta United today as a season ticket holder. They called me. I'm like, hello, this is Blake. They're like, hey, this is Atlanta United. This is a recorded message, and we're giving you a free ticket to the U.S. Open Cup this upcoming Wednesday. So Joe and I are going to preview that game for you coming up. Free match for season ticket holders. Huge game. They're putting it in the Benz. They're not keeping it up in Kennesaw, but we did win that game in Kennesaw, advancing to the next round of the Open Cup. We tied a very, very tough game in the heat on a Saturday morning in New York. Huge point on the road. Brad with the game of his life. And then most recently, we defeated Columbus Crew on the road 2-0. Incredible play from Joseph, sacrificing his body to get us a goal. And it was great to see Tito Villalba back on the field scoring a goal.
Villalba,
Flying down the wing. Villalba, Atlanta's king. Joe came up with that chant. I'm really digging it. We'll see if it catches on.
I was singing it at the bar outside the perimeter, and some people liked it. Some people were like, what is Atlanta United?
What is wrong with this guy? Anyways, speaking of NYCFC, I talked about it a little bit last week. Patrick Vieira has officially departed NYCFC. He is headed to Nice in France, and good luck to him. He was a great coach.
It's a big job going to League One, and I'm a little bit shocked, and I think it does not help the MLS. A lot of people say, well, does this help the MLS or not? You know, if a player moves on to a big league like that, that's big. But we want the coaches to stay and have those big name coaches. But it's for Vieira. He was in City Club, who owns Manchester City and New York City, and it's kind of a club that he doesn't know his future. They could fire him at any time, and he was doing the best for himself.
Let's be honest, though. They replaced him with another solid signing, Dominique Torrent. He's the head coach replacing outgoing Patrick Vieira. He has been an assistant coach at Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and now he's been Pep Guardiola's right-hand man at Manchester City. So they're not replacing him with some scrub. This is Man City's assistant coach, second to Pep Guardiola, taking over.
You said he was assistant to Pep, and you mentioned Barcelona, Bayern, and Man City.
He's following Pep.
That's what Pep has done his whole the last 3 jobs.
So this is Pep's right-hand man. If anyone follows international soccer around the globe, Pep Guardiola is one of the elite coaches, if not the most elite in all of the world. He's won Champions League. He's won league titles. He's won it all, and he's done it in different countries all through Europe. So I think that NYCFC is not really going to take a step back, but it is cool to see a coach in the MLS go into Europe in a good position like Vieira is right now.
Yes, that's actually good news, and great point, Blake. But on other news, I saw someone break a nose. I saw a bunch of heads clashing. Tell me who's hurting.
Injury report. Injury report.
We've had a big week. We've had lots going on. We've had all the hurts, all the feels, all the injuries. I could die in your arms tonight. But Miggy, I thought, was dead. Not dead, but I thought his arm was dead. He fell down really hard on his shoulder, and it reminded me of Mo Salah in the Champions League final.
Mo Salah,
who's apparently going to be back this morning against Uruguay, which is exciting to hear. But in Atlanta United-related news, Miggy was back on the field against the Columbus Crew, which was fantastic to see. I don't think anyone expected it.
No, everyone thought he wasn't even going to make the trip, thought he wasn't going to start. Well, then he gets on the plane. Everyone's like, oh, my gosh, Miggy might be there and be a sub. And then the lineup gets announced, and Miguel Amarón playing his number 10 position, and how important it was to see him in the field.
I thought he had a great game. Obviously, whenever he's playing right behind Joseph, it's just so dangerous. You know, anytime that he gets the ball in space, that Joseph is just waiting on that offside trap line, and he's just ready to spring him. It was great to see Miggy back. Miggy looks healthy. He did, a little rusty, I would say, but he looked like himself. I didn't see any lingering issues from that shoulder injury. He even, went down a couple times, got fouled hard a couple times, and I didn't see any lingering effects. So great to see Miggy on the pitch. Take him off the injury report for all I care. Let's put someone new on the injury report. Joseph Martinez. We got to talk about this guy. I don't think he's going to miss time, but he did break his nose, allegedly. He was...
While
scoring a goal.
Another one.
Oh, Joseph Martinez played a fantastic game.
And you know what? He's only 2 goals off of that 1 goal per game pace that we want him to finish at during the season. He was 1 goal off last year. He's 2 goals. He's only 1 hat trick away from being right back on pace to be a 1 goal per game guy. On pace to break the record of all-time goals in a single season, which is 28. Track that for me, Blake.
Top of the Golden Boot race at this point in the season. He also won Goal of the Week, not even for this goal in the Crew game. He also scored another world-class header at NYCFC.
From a beautiful bending assist from Gresselmania.
So just to catch everyone up, our last 2 games, goals have come from Joseph twice, and then we mentioned it and sang about it. Tito Vijalba back on the pitch. Great finish against NYCFC. Finishing up the injury report, let's just hit on a few more things here, Joe. Let's talk about Chris McCann, the Irish man.
Chris McCann. Is he
Irish
ever going to
man.
come back?
Tata Martino said that he's once again unavailable with a hamstring injury day to day. We mentioned Tito Vijalba. He's back. He's probably going to take a little bit of time to get up to match fitness, but I think he's going to get 90 minutes against Chicago on Wednesday in our cup match.
That's a good
that's
speculation.
a bold Blake the Marshman prediction.
We can debate that later down to Tata's tactics.
We will get to that later, so stick with us, guys. Finally, while Joe was out last week with an injured pup, Guinness, Joe, can we get an injury report on Guinness?
I'm going to raise a glass again to Britt for filling in. And to Blake, when you called Guinness a pup, his ears perked up, and I saw the puppy come out of him. If you guys don't know, my dog Guinness is 12 and a half years old, and he is no longer a pup.
Always a pup.
Way far from it. And he had a little bit of some stomach issues. He had some puppy coming out of him where he got into everything he could eat, and I had to take care of him. But he is 100%. He will be back on his doggy bed watching the Atlanta United game and ready to go. That's
great news. That's the best news of this injury report. Unfortunately, though, we do have a lot of dogs involved with the podcast. Dubs Dublin, he is the producer's dog here at our studio, and unfortunately, he looks like he's out 10 to 12 weeks with leg surgery.
Yeah, he got done with surgery. He looks like he's doing decent, recovering. He will be able to watch the game from the sideline, heavily sedated.
Yeah, so we got dog injuries, we got player injuries. Enough with injuries. No one likes injuries. It's time to recap what's happened with Atlanta United. And rolling into this recap, we had a bunch of games coming in hard and fast. We had some dog injuries. We worked through some difficulties. The ATLiens are back. Let's talk about NYCFC first really quick. Just going to hit on a few points. Joseph Martinez with a fantastic header, which we mentioned. He had 2 fantastic headers for goals in both games, but this game was an incredible header. He bounced it off the ground over the goalie's head into the corner. Assist from Gresselmania. Miggy and Barco both pulled out. Miggy with the shoulder injury, which obviously we've already talked about he recovered from. Barco just looked a little bit tired, but then he came back and played fine at Columbus, so they both played well.
And talk about Joseph. When he went to headbang the ball down to the ground, his hair just so eloquently flipped up and flipped back into position.
Yeah, this hairstyle is working well for him.
And Gressel came over to hug him and just caress and flow through those blonde, luscious locks of Joseph. And he just the power of his hair just flying through the team to help him on this road trip.
Yeah, I think it's something that has gone very unnoticed the past couple weeks even is how well Joseph is playing in this hairstyle. And I'm just letting our listeners know, if you're new to the show or if you've been listening for a long time, we might have something that I can't mention coming up really soon, Joe, because he's been in fine goal scoring form with the aforementioned haircut.
And I love it. And so New York City have not lost a game at home.
Haven't even tied a game.
Going a step further, they haven't even tied a game at home. We were going into the toughest place to play in the MLS because they play on a pitch made for ants.
What is this? It needs to be at least 3 times as big.
I don't know what we're working with here. But Orlando City, Orlando City hasn't lost a game, haven't won a game.
Orlando City
Save
doesn't
me.
win games. We're talking about New York City. It's easy to get all these cities mixed up.
I've got to get back into podcast form here. I've
Joe
been on the injury report.
He's still getting his match fitness back up. But I get what you're saying. This was the toughest place to play per record in the MLS. We all know that Mercedes-Benz is the toughest place to play in the league. This is the toughest place to play in terms of record. No one had tied. No one had drawn here. See, I just messed up. No one had won. No one had drawn. No one had tied. No one had touched NYCFC. No one had gotten a single point off them ever until we got this point. It's just 1 point, but it was a big point.
And you know what I noticed on this road trip, which I mentioned earlier, the toughest road trip that we're going to have all season.
Yeah.
We got one more that's a 4-game road trip, but we weren't playing the quality of competition. And one thing that Atlanta United has done so well is scoring first. And when they score first, they are allowed to play how they want to play. And that is going all out attack, and it makes the other team open up and have to try to score against them, which allows our speed to attack them, and it really shows their weaknesses.
So I will agree with you in the Columbus Crew game on that. Watching the NYCFC game, I hated how we played after we scored the goal. We gave up shots off the post. Brad had to make a million saves. We packed into the shell, and it wasn't the greatest display of soccer in my opinion. But I agree with you. We are so dangerous on the counter.
Yeah, and to counterpoint that, we didn't look good in the second half against New York. But I think that was a lot to do with the formation that we played with the 3 in the back versus 4 in the back that we played with Columbus. And we can touch on that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But let's kind of recap. Brad Guzan, how many saves? 9 saves as an Atlanta United goalkeeper is a record for Atlanta. And I think that's going to stay up there for a long time. 9 saves was incredible. He was the man of the match, and I envy him. And he carried that over to the very next game, Columbus Crew.
Yeah, let's talk about the game most recently on Wednesday night at Columbus. They were the number 2 team in Supporter Shield standings. We come out with a win, 2-0, just to catch our fans up before we recap the game on the standings following the Crew win. After 16 games played, we are top of the entire MLS, not the Eastern or the Western, but the entire Supporter Shield standings, which we mentioned before. We're at 33 points. We're averaging 2.06 points per game. Second place is Sporting Kansas City at 29 points in 15 games played. We're starting to pull away a little bit. Obviously, they have a game in hand, but it's awesome to see us at the top. It's awesome to see us with that 4-point gap.
And we just got to keep winning and win our home games. It's been amazing how much of a road warrior team we have been this season. And we have now a better record on the road than we do have at our own stadium.
Yeah, that's the most unbelievable thing, because that was our Achilles heel last year, was road games. We were winning everything at Bobby Dodd, except for that first game. And we were winning everything once we moved in the Benz, but we went on the road last year, and we just kind of fell apart. We didn't even look like the same team. This year, we are 5 wins, 1 loss on the road, 2 ties. And at home this year, we're 5 wins also, but we have 2 losses and 1 tie. So we have a better record on the road, like you said. That's unbelievable. Let's talk a little bit about this Crew game.
Going into Columbus Crew, they were another team not quite as good as New York at home, but they hadn't lost at home. They had a couple 3 ties, and they were the hottest team in the league as well. They hadn't lost in 5 games. They were a team we were afraid of. Gassi Zardes was playing outside his mind. Everyone thought he was done for, no longer a solid player. Come in, he's second in the goal scoring standings.
Yeah, number 2 behind Joseph.
And so he found new form. And who is Columbus's coach? He just knows how to make that center striker become the true number 9 and gets as many goals out of him as he can. And so it's been very incredible to watch Columbus play this well. And they brought in a designated player defender and shored up that back line, which is where they were susceptible last year. And it looked like they were doing great. And Zach Steffen as their keeper, another great young upstart. So were we going to beat them? It was very questionable. I was scared going into this game.
Yeah.
And we dominated.
We played really well. I mean, they had their chances. Again, you mentioned him earlier. Greg Berhalter, their head coach, he really does keep them organized. Early on, I felt like they were very solid defensively. Like we were having trouble keeping the ball. They had like a mid kind of press going on, not a high press, but they were pressuring us on the ball. We were having to, like, sometimes I saw Larry get in trouble. We were kind of chucking up a little bit of some long balls. Like, we weren't playing our possession game, but Larry makes smart tactical decisions. He doesn't always play the ball how Tata would want it played, with, like, always trying to play out the back. But, they had some chances I just want to hit on. They had a couple open headers that, a better striker might have put in. I remember Zardes just missing a wide open opportunity. And then one of their defenders, I don't know who it was, to be honest with you, but they had a golden opportunity where he just headed it slightly to the right of the goal post. They could have been in this game. They played pretty well. Their fans definitely weren't there behind them, but that's because their team may or may not be moving to Austin. But yeah, we got to talk about our hero. He's back. Tito Villalba.
Villalba, flying down the wing.
Played great. He played so great. What minute did he come in? He came in midway through the second half.
And he comes in and scores a goal pretty quick after that. And the joy that I saw on our young kid's face, Tito Villalba, who hasn't played in a couple games, to score a goal, get his third of the season, he was just so happy and just proving to everybody that he can do this.
I saw this awesome picture from the locker room after the game. And if you guys are anywhere near a computer, get on the internet, check out Miggy's picture that he posted on all his social media. It's the whole team in the locker room. Everyone is smiling. I have never seen Tito and the team looking happier. Except for Joseph, of course, has his arms folded, mean mugging. But the rest of the team is all smiles.
While he's bleeding internally from his nose.
He looks like he's doing okay. He's got some cool kicks on, and he's got.
Have you ever broken your nose before, Blake?
I have a couple times.
I have too. You've done it more than once?
I have, just from, I played a lot of contact sports growing up and had some, I gotten some altercations maybe.
You got in a little fight?
Here and there. I broke my nose a couple times. It happens.
It happened to me once. I was in a fight with the concrete.
That's
I was
tough.
on a skateboard right in Austin, skating down a hill and slid out, slammed my face into the ground. My nose was hanging off the side of my face. I had to go to surgery for it.
Yeah, I would say if your nose is hanging off the side of your face, that would require surgery.
But in light of Joseph Martinez, I think after my surgery and I had a severe broken nose, I could have come back after a couple of weeks. And a minor broken nose, you can come back the next week. As maybe you can wear a face mask. What do you think?
I think that this was the greatest goal Joseph has ever scored. And I'm not gonna like speculate on when he's gonna be back. I think he'll be fine. He clearly played after, the goal was scored and he broke his nose apparently, but he was bleeding out. He couldn't continue after the second half because there was just too much bleeding. It was coming through his mouth, coming through his nose. He had his nose plugged up for a little while in the first half.
Yeah.
But Romario Williams came in, played well. I just think this was the most fantastic goal for Joseph. And I'm just going to talk about this for 2 seconds to our listeners out there that has ever had a critical thought in their head about Joseph. And I'm one of those people, and this guy put it all on the line. He scores a fantastic header, risking the most vital part of his body, takes a shot to the nose, and he doesn't even get to celebrate his goal or do his signature like mean mug stand there. He is down on the ground, and then he gets up and keeps playing the rest of the half. I have the utmost respect for Joseph right now.
He is a warrior, and he puts his body on the line. Every team needs at least one of those guys, and we have him. We have Garza. We got people. We have
LGP. Remember last year when he played with the wrap, his head was bleeding out, and he looked like a pirate.
We have Escobar, who is not afraid to run into a wall.
Yeah, or injure his thorax.
We have got a bunch of warriors, and the fact that Joseph Martinez throws his body on the line, scores the goal for his team, and continues to play, and almost gets another couple goals. It's incredible, and we are lucky to have Joseph Martinez.
Let's talk about one more thing. We talked about Brad in the New York City game. Let's talk about last night, Brad getting that clean sheet.
Brad Guzan,
The sheet
my
is clean.
man, that flag is coming back next game. I am bringing the Guzan flag back
He's
to
big.
the game.
He's tall.
He's a wall.
Brad Guzan.
Brad Guzan.
Brad Guzan. Hey, Joe, I'm getting a little thirsty here.
Yeah, I need a beer. Beer of the week.
Every week.
Every week. And I'm taking this Golden Spike, and I am dedicating this beer, Spike In, to Brad Guzan, who had just an incredible week of form, and I hope you carry it on. It's almost like he thinks he's in the World Cup, and he's got to play out of his mind.
Brad. I tried to do this last week and I failed.
ATL chant.
Here we go.
Hey.
ATL. Joe is back.
That's right.
What do we got
And
this
that's
week, Joe?
Very smooth.
We got Jekyll Brewing Secret Apollo IPA.
Yeah, it's a very fancy can. You got an alien in a spacesuit. You got a little pew 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 X-wing on one side and a pew 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 TIE fighter on the other side. Pretty cool Star Wars references.
Yeah, Star Wars themed beer here. Brewed and canned in Alpharetta, Georgia. Keeping it local, like always on the ATLiens.
And it's just another IPA, 6%, keeping it mellow and very flavorful. It's more of an East Coast style IPA.
Yeah, this is a tasty beer. I mean, this would be great for a tailgate. This is like the epitome of a tailgate beer.
Is that what you say?
That's my thought on it. This is a tailgate IPA.
So wonderful, and I'm going to cheers to Brad Guzan for his clean sheet, getting back on the board, and another cheers to Tito Villalba getting back on the field and scoring a goal, and finally a cheers to our boys in the red and black for going on the road and securing 4 points against the 3rd and 4th place team in the standings. Way to go and bring it back home.
Cheers, Joe.
Cheers.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about Jekyll Brewing. I know that a lot of you guys that are listening might not have checked it out before. It's in Alpharetta, Georgia. The brewery is inspired by Jekyll Island in Georgia. So if you guys are beachgoers, that's where the inspiration came from. You guys be sure to check them out. They have a great space. They're a great space to just hang out, drink some beer. Awesome place to bring the kids, bring the dog. Jekyll Brewing, Alpharetta, Georgia. Secret Apollo is our beer of the week. Their theme is beer like it ought to be. Thanks to Jekyll for being our beer of the week. You know, Joe, I really am excited about drinking this alien beer, but we got to preview this game that we didn't even know was going to happen. It's the Chicago Fire on Wednesday night. Let's preview it.
We got all sorts of cups going on. We got the World Cup and we got the U.S. Open Cup. Well, USA wasn't going to the World Cup, so this is like your NIT tournament of soccer.
Yeah, to our listeners that aren't familiar with college basketball, that's what Joe's referencing. There's the March Madness every year that everyone knows about. Fill out your brackets. But then there's the tournament for the teams that, didn't make it. It's the NIT. So, yeah, we're in the U.S. Open Cup.
And now we're in the round of 16. We made it past Charleston, and they do a draw, and it's a bracket style. They group everybody into the regions. So you have 4 groups of 4.
4 and 4. That equals 16. 4 times 4.
And you put it into a single elimination bracket style. And pre-draw, they map out the bracket, and they decide where the home team is going to go, and it based on if you get drawn first or second.
Right.
And Atlanta United came out first, and so they get the home game against Chicago Fire. And as Blake mentioned earlier, if you're a season ticket holder, that's our complimentary ticket. Let's go keep our sellout record going. Let's get everybody to that game on Wednesday. But not only did we get that home game, if we manage to make it past Chicago Fire, we get the home game in the round of 8. And we play a USL team because on the lower bracket, Blake, help me out. Who are the 2 teams in our side of the region?
So let's talk to our viewers a little bit about the U.S. Open Cup. Obviously, it is open, and we talked about this last week in case you didn't tune in. It's open to anyone in the U.S. and North America. So, like, any club anywhere in the U.S. can enter this tournament. It's kind of like the FA Cup in England where they call it the magic of the FA Cup. You can come up, like the English 5th division team can come up and technically go to Wembley and win the cup.
Mm-hmm.
Same concept, okay? So here's the teams that aren't in the MLS. I'm sorry for stuttering. I just got excited.
You just drank a little bit too much Jekyll beer there.
I just
Slow
was like,
your beer roll down.
Just got to slow my roll. I'm just
it's
really
an
excited.
IPA. Just take your time and enjoy the aromas.
I'm really excited. Here's what we got. We got Louisville City playing Nashville. Okay? That is a game. We're going to play the winner of that game. Both those teams are not in the MLS. Nashville is going to be moving up. Exactly, yet. The only other team that's not in the MLS that's still in this tournament is Sacramento Republic FC, which I'm also pulling for. They're playing Los Angeles FC, so they're playing LAFC.
Sacramento made it this far last year.
Yeah.
And Sacramento is one of the teams that are going to join the MLS. Is it Sacramento Republic going to be the team that moves up, kind of like Minnesota did and Cincinnati is going to do and Nashville is about to do?
I'm not sure the details on it yet. I think that that's still up for debate, last I checked. But cool to see some of these teams in there. Big game in the Benz. Let's talk a little bit about like what we're going to roll out, because this is a cup competition. But look, we're already in the round of 16. So what does that mean? We got to win 1, 2, 3, 4 games and we get a cup. Okay? This is a great shot at a cup. This is a great shot at our first trophy as a club. What do you think we got going on here? Again, free game for the season ticket holders. Rematch of Cinco de Fuego, Cinco de Fire, where we won 2-1 at Chicago. Pretty even match. We still play Chicago again this year, October the 21st, but that's a little ways away. So, what do you think about this game? What do you think about our lineup and what Tata's thinking? Are we putting this cup match as a priority in terms of our season?
Well, this is a good question here. We are at the top of the MLS standings, where Chicago is number 7. And so they're going to be focusing more on MLS and trying to make the playoffs, which is the top 6 in the East. So Chicago, I don't think, is going to prioritize this game, where we are at a luxury where we can prioritize the U.S. Open Cup while we're so high in the standings. And right after this game, we get a long break.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to go put out a pretty fancy lineup. We're going to bring in our starters. Another rule about U.S. Open Cup is you can only start so many international players.
Right.
So we may see a lot of USL2 players that are American as well. In Chicago, they're going to be resting a lot of players. And don't ever take a team lightly, but it's our time to put out some solid players and go break them down. Especially Chicago's been kind of tail spinning. They're number 7 in the standings when just a month ago they were top 3.
Yeah. So I have to hit on something really quick. You mentioned that Chicago might not be prioritizing this game. 3 days later on Saturday, they play at Seattle. So they have to travel all the way to the West Coast.
After being in Atlanta.
Up to Seattle. I'm kind of with you. I don't think they're going to prioritize this game. I'm not saying we take them for granted by any means.
Right.
I'm just saying that if the Atlanta faithful show up, like I know they will, and if you're a season ticket holder, I'm challenging you right now. Cancel your plans for Wednesday night. This is a free Atlanta United home game in the nicest stadium in the world. Get out there. Get out there, support the team, get off work. The game's not till 7:30.
Let's keep our sellout streak going.
Get on the train, get an Uber, get in your car, head to the Benz. Let's take it to the round of 8. Let's go get a trophy this year.
Yeah, and it's a great matchup. We have a USL team looming if we win. So Chicago they just tied this past Wednesday, and they also got a red card, which does not come into effect in the U.S. Open Cup because it's MLS.
Yeah, they tied Colorado this last week, and Colorado has been terrible.
And they've only won 2 games out of their last 6 total games. So they've been very much struggling. And tell me, is Dax McCarty hurt?
I believe he is day-to-day last I checked. I don't know if he's going to be out for this game just because it's a few days out. Obviously, Atlanta United's off over the weekend. It's still a 5 Stripe Friday, but we don't have a game this weekend. I think it's a great spot for our team to be in. Playing in Columbus Wednesday night, having a week of rest, and then playing at home. We're just in a great position right now.
And I want to break this down a little bit further. Let's talk some Tata's tactics. And Blake, it was finally here. We've been debating for it seems like 2 months. I've been throwing out my lineup and saying, he's going to go a 4-3-3 this week. And he throws out 3 in the back. And I just relentlessly come back and say, he's going to go 4 in the back. He has to. And he doesn't do it. And then in New York, he didn't do it. I'm like, all right, he is never going back to the 4 in the back. I was convinced.
Never say never, Joe.
And then in Columbus, we put 4 men in the back.
And I thought it was a fantastic lineup. Sans Villalba. Because, okay, here's the reason, in my opinion, we went for at the back. We finally had our back line healthy, at least in terms of, our regular center backs and or right back. So we were able to put LGP, Michael Parkhurst. That's our most solid center back pairing. No one is debating that.
Right.
But Escobar is like a center back / right back. And he's healthy from that thorax injury or whatever he had, the Pokemon injury. So he's back, and he's playing right back where he was initially intended to play. So that's 3 defenders solidified. So you could put them as a back 3. You could, in theory. But what we did is we added Ambrose, who has been playing excellently, in my opinion.
Oh, Mikey.
And maybe could have gotten sent off.
The 13-year-old child face, Mikey Ambrose.
He does look like a baby, but he plays like a man. And he was at left back. So I thought that was a solid back 4. What do you think of our back 4? Let's talk about defense first.
Oh, I've been harping on. I wanted the back 4, and I think it allows us to hold possession a little bit longer. It allows us more options, and a lot of times it does turn into a back 2.
Sure.
Where our wing backs still have the freedom. I saw Escobar running up the field. He was okay on the ball, but seemed very clunky.
Yeah.
It seemed like he had big feet going up, but Ambrose on the other side was able. They both had the freedom to run up and down the line still.
Cool to see the width that those guys can bring to the team. For our listeners that aren't super familiar with formations, it's a big difference, and I think maybe Tata saw this going from New York City, the second half of that New York City game, rolling in to a situation where he was like, man, we were on the road. We were on our back foot. Why did we struggle so much in the second half against New York City? And I think he decided to go to 4 at the back to keep that pressure on them. And the difference between the second half against New York and the second half against Columbus, in my opinion, because we had a 1-goal lead in both of those, right?
Right.
Was night and day, and it was 100% down to the back line. That's why I wanted to start with defense.
And so tactically, when you have 3 in the back and you put 5 in the midfield, you're overloading the midfield of play. And that is going to make you more keeping the defense or offensively, they're keeping them in front of you, but you don't have as much defensive support. And then 4 in the back, you kind of open up the midfield and you don't overload them, but you give them more space to work. And it spreads everybody out, and you're allowed to find the gaps on the sidelines as well as the middle of the field.
Yeah, a lot more room to play. And we've talked about the 6 a lot, but Larry's position can kind of drop in between the 2 center backs, in between Parkey and LGP, and really distribute to the rest of the team.
And in its own way, we can change mid-game into a back 3. We got Larry dropping back with the 2 defenders, and then we push our wing backs up, and now we're back into that back 3, and it's kind of a shifting formation within the game.
Let's talk about the rest of the team tactically. So midfield has been pretty much untouched. Larry has solidified himself as that number 6, as our central defensive midfielder.
Yes.
Not sure what our cup tactics are going to be, but if we're just talking best lineup, which we are for this segment of Tata's Tactics, he's solidified. Nagby has solidified that 8 role. He's solidified that gap between the defensive midfield and the attack.
Mm-hmm.
Nagby I think he is our most consistent player. He's not our best player, but he's most consistent. And then great to see Miggy in there at the 10, at the head of the midfield, back, looking healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing up for debate is really the attack. And Barco's playing well, if not great. Joseph obviously is putting his body on the line. So that comes down to right
Head
wing.
of the golden boot. Right wing, and you got Gresselmania, who's playing right wing back, but he pushed up in this 4-3-3 and played that right wing, and he had the assist, a beautiful, beautiful assist at New York. But then you got Tito Villalba coming back from injury, scores a goal in his first appearance in several weeks.
Lightning fast.
And so now you've got that one-on-one challenge. Do you want to keep rolling with Tito, who scored a goal, or Gresselmania, who's had a hot season?
I think that's what Tata has to figure out. And I think rotation and options are always great things to have, because we've seen with injuries so far this season, you got to have depth and you got to have players that can step up. Honestly, of the 2, and I love Gresselmania. We fly a Gresselmania flag at games. We could not love Gresselmania more as a podcast.
I have his hat. WrestleMania hat with the patch on it, but go ahead.
I just preface that because I think that Tito Villalba is the better player at that right wing position.
Now, you say he's the better player, and you said options. Every team needs someone to bring a spark off the bench. Whether it be Tito Villalba or Gresselmania, someone that can come in and change the game. Well, Tito Villalba just proved that he can come off the bench and score a goal. And to me, I'm indifferent. I don't care who starts the game. Knowing that we have Gresselmania coming off the bench or Tito Villalba, who both can come in and play multiple positions and give us a little change of pace and a little wild card. And now we can change the game, and one of them can come in and score when we need it.
Yeah, I think that's up for Tata to decide moving forward. I still think we're going to see 3 at the back some games. I think that Tata has built a team of depth that's fluid, and we're going to be moving around a lot. I think that Gressel's better as that wing back, and I think Tito's better as that front 3 attacker. But time will tell.
This is a good time to break, and I want to hold this debate, and I want to bring it back next podcast episode. We're going to watch the U.S. Open Cup, and we're going to see whichever one plays, if either, and we can debate it next week during our bye week. And other than that, everyone go out, drink some beers, enjoy the World Cup. Remember, we're going to do a World Cup series podcast after this. You guys go check us out. But this is ATLiens United. That's Blake Marsham. I'm ATL Joe.
The Marshman.
Thank you for listening. Hit us up on social media. We're on Instagram and Twitter. We got an email. If you have any questions, email us at atliensunited@gmail.com.
Father's Day. Don't forget your dads this weekend, guys. And the World Cup.
Cheers.
Let's go, ATL.